There are moments in a saint's life that mark them forever, moments so profound that even years later their voice trembles when they speak of them. For Padre Pio, one such moment was the day God allowed him to witness the mysterious reality of purgatory, not as a distant idea, not as a theological concept, but as a living, burning truth. Padre Pio described it as if a spiritual curtain had been torn open. One moment he was praying quietly, and the next he was standing in front of a realm he had never imagined with such clarity. A world lit not by sunlight, but by a fire that seemed to rise from the very soul of creation. But this was no ordinary fire. It did not flicker like flames of wood or coal. It glowed with a supernatural intensity, bright yet sorrowful, consuming yet strangely full of peace. He later said that this fire did not burn bodies because purgatory is not a place of physical punishment. It burns the soul, purifying it with a divine flame so pure that human language struggles to describe it. This fire had a purpose, and that purpose was love, love that cleanses, love that transforms, love that hurts only so the soul can one day shine in perfection before God. Padre Pio often admitted that what he saw left him trembling for days, not out of fear, but out of awe, awe at the holiness of God, awe at the seriousness of sin, awe at the mercy that gives the soul a final chance to be purified before entering heaven. From that day on, Padre Pio felt an even deeper compassion for the souls undergoing purification, because he had tasted, even for a moment, the weight of their suffering and the hope that sustained them. Padre Pio explained that the fire of purgatory is unlike anything known on earth. It is not material fire, not the blazing heat of a furnace, nor the scorching breath of flames that consume wood and flesh. Instead, it is a spiritual fire born from the holiness of God Himself, a fire that burns the soul, not to torture it, but to cleanse it completely. He described it as a flame that penetrates the deepest layers of the soul, exposing every hidden imperfection, every unrepented choice, every forgotten wound caused by sin. But what struck him most was this paradox. The fire hurt because the soul finally saw what it had done to love. When a soul encounters God's purity, the distance created by sin becomes unbearable. That distance is the fire. To Padre Pio, the souls he saw were not screaming in terror. They were enduring their purification with a quiet, sorrowful longing, a longing for God so intense that it became its own form of pain. They wanted Him completely. They desired union with Him more than any earthly joy. Yet they knew they were not ready. The fire, then, was mercy. A painful mercy, yes, but mercy nonetheless. It removed the stains the soul carried for years. It healed the blindness that self-love had caused. It purified desires, thoughts, intentions, memories. Every moment in that fire made the soul more capable of perfect love, perfect truth, and perfect joy. And the souls understood this. That was the mystery Padre Pio could never forget. They embraced the fire willingly, because through it they rose closer and closer to God. For Padre Pio, this vision changed everything. He saw that the suffering of purgatory, though intense, was crowned with hope, a hope that burns brighter than the fire itself. When Padre Pio was granted the vision, he saw souls immersed in a mysterious light that flickered like fire, but not the chaotic red of earthly flames. It was a white-gold radiance, trembling with purity, echoing with a silent cry of longing. Each soul looked as if it were burning from the inside out, yet not a single one was destroyed. Instead, they glowed with increasing brilliance, as if the fire were sculpting them into something far more beautiful than before. Some souls appeared almost peaceful, their faces softened with acceptance. They had carried small sins, minor neglects, everyday faults, the kind people brush aside in life. For them, the flames were gentle, like a refining heat that carefully polished their hearts. Others, however, suffered more intensely. Padre Pio saw souls who had lived lives of selfishness, pride, unrepented anger, or damaging habits. These souls did not scream from hatred or rebellion, but from recognition, the sudden, overwhelming understanding of the harm they had caused, the grace they had rejected, the love they had ignored. Their purification was deeper, more piercing, because their wounds were greater. And yet even in their suffering, there was no despair, not even a trace. The most shocking thing Padre Pio noticed was this: every soul knew why it was there. There was no confusion, no blaming, no excuses. Souls silently bowed to God's justice and embraced His mercy with humility that only truth could produce. In the midst of the fire, Padre Pio sensed something astonishing. The souls prayed for the living. They prayed for their families, for sinners, for the world. Their suffering did not make them bitter. It made them more loving. This was the fire's true work, to turn wounded souls into saints. Padre Pio often emphasized that the fire of purgatory is not a punishment inflicted by an angry God. It is a gift of mercy offered by a loving Father who desires nothing less than perfect union with every soul. In his vision, the fire did not resemble the flames of hell, which rage with hatred and separation. Instead, it radiated purpose, meaning, and divine tenderness. It was not meant to destroy but to heal, not to terrify, but to transform. He understood something profound. Nothing impure can enter the presence of perfect love, not because God rejects the soul, but because the soul itself cannot bear the intensity of His holiness while still stained by sin. The fire of purgatory is the soul preparing itself to meet God face to face, the greatest moment it will ever experience. Padre Pio compared it to a person stepping out of darkness into bright sunlight. At first, the light hurts the eyes. The body recoils, not because the sun is cruel, but because the eyes are unprepared. In the same way, the soul must gradually adapt to God's brilliance. The fire burns away ego, pride, selfishness, bitterness, and the subtle sins we justify throughout life. It cleanses memories, heals emotional wounds, and restores the soul to its original beauty, the way God first imagined it. Padre Pio also understood the fire as the soul's own desire for God burning intensely. The pain comes not from God's anger, but from the soul's overwhelming longing to be with Him, a longing so fierce that it becomes a purifying flame. This is why the fire is mercy, because it prepares the soul for eternal joy, a joy so perfect that nothing imperfect could survive within it. Padre Pio's visions were never meant to frighten people. They were meant to awaken compassion. He insisted that souls in purgatory are not abandoned, nor are they powerless. They are surrounded by God's love, yet they still rely on the prayers and sacrifices of the living. For Padre Pio, every Mass, every rosary, every small act of charity held the power to lift a soul closer to heaven. And he believed that the greatest tragedy is not suffering in purgatory, it is being forgotten by those still on earth. In his teachings, he urged believers to adopt a simple habit: offer something daily for the souls. It could be a short prayer, a moment of self-denial, or even carrying everyday burdens with patience. He said that these gifts become like drops of cool water to those being purified by the fire of divine love. The souls cannot act for themselves anymore, but we can act for them. And in return, they become powerful intercessors who pray for us with gratitude. Padre Pio often reminded people that when we help the suffering souls, we also purify our own hearts. Compassion softens pride, charity dissolves selfishness, and prayer strengthens the bond between heaven and earth. Every act of mercy offered for them becomes an act of transformation within us. In the end, Padre Pio's message is clear. We are part of a great spiritual family. Their purification is our responsibility, and our growth is their gift to us.